the words she never meant to say. All started on a quiet morning in early spring. The sky was soft gray, and a gentle breeze moved through the trees outside the window of a small trailer tucked behind a film set. Inside, Ana de Armas sat curled up on a tiny sofa, her knees drawn to her chest, her fingers gripping a lukewarm cup of tea. Her eyes were tired. Not from lack of sleep, but from the weight of holding back tears. Outside, crew members shouted over walkie-talkies. Lights were being rigged, and the clatter of props echoed down the corridor. It was just another day on set. Except for Ana, it wasn't. She stared at her phone, reading the same message over and over again. It was from her mother. Simple words. But they reminded her of everything she had left behind. How far she was. From home, from safety, from being understood. For months now, Ana had felt something slipping. Not her talent, not her lines, but her sense of peace, of belonging. Fame had brought her attention, admiration, and awards, but it had also brought isolation, criticism, and unbearable pressure. And then the knock came. 3 soft taps. She didn't even have to look up. She knew it was him. Keanu never knocked hard. He always knocked like he didn't want to disturb her, like he wasn't sure if he was welcome even though he always was. She wiped her eyes quickly and opened the door. Keanu stood there with a paper bag in one hand and a nervous smile. "I brought breakfast," he said gently. "I remembered you skipped dinner." Ana stepped aside without speaking. He walked in slowly, set the bag down on the table, and turned to face her. There was a long pause between them. She wanted to be strong. She wanted to say, "Thank you," and pretend like everything was okay. But instead, her voice cracked, and the words fell out like broken glass. "I can't do this anymore." Keanu didn't flinch. He didn't try to comfort her right away. He just looked at her with a kind of silence that didn't feel empty, but safe. Like his presence alone was saying, "I'm here." Ana covered her mouth with her hand, embarrassed. She had never said those words out loud to anyone. Not to her manager, not to her mother, not to herself in the mirror. But now she had, and it felt like breathing for the first time in weeks. "I'm tired," she whispered. "I'm smiling when I don't feel like it. Of pretending like this world doesn't scare me. Of carrying everything alone. I don't know who I am anymore." Keanu walked over to the table, sat down, and opened the paper bag. Slowly, he pulled out 2 warm croissants and a small jar of honey. "You don't have to do this alone," he said softly. "Not today." Ana looked at him, her eyes searching for something, maybe a reason to believe his words. And in that moment, she saw something she had never truly noticed before. Keanu wasn't just kind. He was broken too. Not in a way that made him weak, but in a way that made him human. He knew pain. And somehow, that made his calmness even more powerful. They sat in silence, eating breakfast. As the world outside rushed forward, when the assistant director knocked to say it was time for the next scene, Keanu stood first. But instead of walking away, he looked back at her and said quietly, "You're allowed to fall apart. But just promise me one thing." Ana raised an eyebrow, curious. What? "Don't walk away before you see how strong you are." Her lips trembled, and just like that, something inside her began to shift. Not everything was okay. Not yet. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe, just maybe it could be. And that was enough for now. The day the mask cracked the sun was already high by the time they reached set that afternoon. Ana walked a few steps behind Keanu, her hands tucked deep into her jacket pockets. The morning conversation still echoed in her mind, his quiet strength, his steady presence, his words that didn't try to fix her pain but simply stood beside it. It had been a long time since someone did that, but the world of lights and lenses waited for no one. As soon as they stepped on set, everything shifted. People rushed, makeup artists tugged at her face, and assistants barked directions. It felt like she was being swallowed again. She looked at Keanu, but he had already been pulled aside by the director. Ana took her place in front of the camera. She tried to focus on her lines, on the marks on the floor, on her breathing, but her hands trembled. Her voice came out too flat. The scene was paused. "Cut," the director yelled. "Anna, you okay?" She forced a smile. "Yes, just needed a second." "Take it from the top," someone said. But as she stepped forward again, her throat tightened. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, like a thread snapping. A single tear escaped before she could stop it, just one. But in the world she was in, one tear could say too much. "We can reset," someone called out. "Makeup, please." Stepped away from the camera, her eyes down, her chest tight. She didn't want to cry. Not here. Not in front of all these people who expected her to be perfect. Then, without a word, Keanu walked over and stood beside her. He didn't touch her. He didn't ask anything. Just stood there, shoulder to shoulder. "I'm sorry," she whispered, wiping her cheek quickly. "Why?" he asked, voice low and calm. "For being like this, for not being strong enough." Keanu looked at her, and there was something in his eyes that made her stop breathing for a second. Not pity, not worry, something deeper. "You're stronger than you think," he said. "But you don't have to prove it every second." Small breath and added, "Do you want to walk for a bit? Just away from here?" Anna nodded. They told the crew they needed 10 minutes. No one argued. When Keanu asked, people listened. They walked down a quiet alley behind the soundstage, past rows of trailers and forgotten props. The silence between them was comforting. Not awkward, not heavy, just real. Anna finally said, "Sometimes I wonder if people would still like me if they saw the real me. Not the red carpet version, not the edited interviews, just the tired, confused, overwhelmed me." Keanu didn't rush to answer. He took his time. I think he said slowly, "The people who matter already see you, even when you try to hide." Anna turned to him. "And if they don't, then they're not the people you need." She nodded, biting her lip. Those words landed deep. She had spent years trying to please everyone. To be perfect for every magazine, every fan, every stranger on the internet. "Down one smile at a time, you know," Keanu added, looking up at the trees. "There was a time when I didn't speak to anyone for days. I would go home, sit in silence, eat cereal, and not answer the phone. Everyone thought I was fine, but I wasn't." Anna's eyes widened. "You?" He smiled a little sadly. "Yeah, me. I've lost people. I've been lost myself. Had days where I couldn't remember why I got out of bed. But eventually, I learned something." "What?" "You don't always have to carry the weight alone. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is ask someone to walk beside you." Anna looked down at the ground, her throat tightening again. But this time, it wasn't from fear. It was from something gentler. Something like hope. They walked back to set. No one asked questions. No one needed to. When they rolled the camera, again, Anna stood straighter. Her voice still shook a little, but it was real, honest. Not perfect, but powerful in its own way. And when the scene ended, it was silence, followed by applause, not loud. Just a few people, but it was enough. Anna glanced at Keanu. He didn't clap, just gave her the smallest nod, like a quiet "I told you so." And for the first time in weeks, Anna smiled not because she had to, but because she felt it something was changing. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready to face it. Behind the applause, the stormed applause still echoed in Anna's ears as the crew moved on to the next setup. But inside her heart, it was quiet. Not empty, but still, calm for once, as if something inside had loosened its grip. After the scene, Keanu had stepped aside to talk with the director, giving her space. Anna appreciated that. He never hovered. He knew how to be present without being overbearing, that she had learned was rare in this industry. She walked toward her trailer, her boots crunching on gravel, feeling the cool breeze on her face. Someone offered her water. Another assistant asked if she needed anything. She shook her head with a gentle smile. All she really needed right now was time and quiet. But peace, as she was learning, didn't last long in this world. When she reached her trailer, her phone buzzed. Once, then again. Then it started ringing. She didn't want to answer. Something inside her told her not to. But curiosity, or maybe habit, made her swipe the screen. "Anna," the voice said, sharp and fast. It was her agent. "Hey," she replied softly, still riding the calm of the day. "What's going on?" her agent snapped. "Why am I getting calls from 3 tabloids saying you cried on set? They're asking if you're unstable, if you're difficult, if the production is in trouble." "What happened?" Anna froze. So that's what people saw. A moment of vulnerability turned into a headline. She sat down slowly on the small couch in her trailer, her throat suddenly dry. "I just had a rough morning," she said quietly. "It's nothing. I got through it." "We shot the scene," Anna, her agent, said, voice lowering. "You know how this industry works. They're not looking for truth. They're looking for drama. You give them one crack in the wall, and they'll try to tear the whole thing down. You have to get ahead of this. Post something. Smile. Pretend it never happened." Anna closed her eyes. Pretend it never happened. Those words burned. After the call ended, she sat there in silence, holding her phone loosely in her hand. The peace she had felt just moments ago had been swept away by the storm of expectations again. But this time, she didn't cry. Instead, she opened her phone and typed a message. It was short. Just one line, but she stared at it for a long time. Then she hit send. A few minutes later, it was a knock at her trailer door. She opened it to find Keanu standing there. He didn't smile. He didn't joke. He just looked at her and said, "I saw what they're saying online." She nodded slowly. "You okay?" he asked. Anna didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Do you ever feel like the world wants to build you up just so they can enjoy tearing you down later?" Keanu nodded. "I do, more times than I can count." "What did you do?" she asked. He looked away, thinking. "I stopped. Trying to control their version of me," he said, "and started working on the real version of me." Anna sat down on the steps of her trailer. Keanu sat beside her. For a while, neither of them spoke. The sky above had turned gold with the setting sun. "It's just," Anna began. "I gave them everything. My time, my energy, my heart. And now they're ready to throw it all away because I had one moment where I wasn't smiling." Keanu turned to her. "They don't get to define your worth, not unless you let them." She looked at him, searching his face. "Then who does?" "You do," he said softly. "The people who know your heart. The ones who stay even when the cameras stop rolling." A quiet tear slipped down her cheek. But this time, she didn't wipe it away. Instead, she leaned her head on his shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered. He didn't respond with words. Jess placed his hand gently over hers. Later that night, as the studio lights shut down and the lot grew quiet, Anna opened her social media and posted something for the first time in weeks. No perfect photo. No filter. No caption crafted by a publicist. Just a simple picture, her sitting on the trailer steps, her eyes tired but calm, and one sentence beneath it, "Being strong doesn't mean hiding your pain. Sometimes it means showing up anyway." Within minutes, thousands of people responded. Not with gossip, not with judgment, but with stories of their own. Messages of understanding, support, kindness. Anna read them in silence, her heart full and trembling. Behind the applause, behind the headlines, behind the masks, she had finally found something real, and she wasn't alone anymore. The letter under her door. Next morning, Anna woke up before the alarm. The sky outside was still painted in soft shades of blue and silver, and the world felt quiet, like it was holding its breath. For the first time in weeks, she had slept through the night. No tossing, no racing thoughts, just peace. Even if it was small, it mattered. As she sat up in her trailer bed, stretching slowly, her eyes landed on something strange near the door. An envelope. Someone had slipped it under in the night. She picked it up carefully. There was no name on it. It's just her. Inside was a single piece of folded paper. The handwriting was neat but shaky, like the person who wrote it had taken their time. It read, "I saw your post. I work on the lighting team. We've never talked, but I wanted to say thank you. I've been struggling too. Yesterday you reminded me that it's okay not to be perfect. I don't have the words, but thank you for being brave. You helped more people than you know. Anna sat there, holding the letter in her hands, her chest tightening, not with sadness this time, but with something else. Something warm, something real. This was why she chose to act, not for fame, not for awards, but for the chance to make someone feel seen, understood, even if only for a moment. Later that day, as she walked on set, something had shifted. People smiled at her a little softer, not with politeness, but with kindness. Crew members she had never spoken to nodded at her. One of the extras whispered, "We're proud of you." She looked around, realizing that everyone was carrying something. Stress, grief, loneliness. Some hid it better than others. But it was there, just below the surface, and somehow, her honesty had helped them feel less alone. "Good morning," Keanu said, appearing beside her with a coffee in hand. "Morning." She smiled, accepting it. He studied her face. "You look different today." Anna smirked. "Different how?" "Lighter," he said, like someone who just remembered who they really are. She didn't say anything. She just smiled and took a sip of her coffee. The scene that day was emotional. Her character was supposed to break down. Months ago, she would have forced herself to act it, make her face cry the right way, say the lines with perfect timing. But now, she didn't act. She let herself feel. The grief in the scene came from somewhere real. Not just the character's pain, but her own. And because of that, the performance didn't feel like acting. It felt like truth. When the director called cut, the entire room was silent. Then, the cameraman quietly said, "That was the most honest thing I've ever filmed." Anna wiped her cheeks, breathing slowly. Keanu stood just a few feet away, watching. He didn't say anything, but his eyes were full of something deep. Respect, admiration, and something more. Something she wasn't ready to name yet. After the shoot, as they walked to the parking lot together, Anna said, "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course," he replied. "You always seem calm, grounded, like nothing shakes you. How do you do that?" He smiled gently. "I don't." She looked at him, surprised. "I feel everything," he said. "I just stopped hiding it from myself. When you accept the storm, it stops controlling you." Anna nodded slowly. Those words stayed with her. As they reached her car, she turned. To him, "I used to think being strong meant hiding my feelings," she said. "But I think real strength is choosing to feel anyway." Keanu smiled. "That's the kind of strength that changes people." They stood there for a moment, not speaking, just looking at each other. Something unspoken passed between them. Not romantic. Something deeper. A knowing. A shared understanding. When Anna got home that night, she sat at her small kitchen table, opened her journal, and began to write. She didn't write about the headlines, or the director's praise, or the applause. She wrote about the letter under her door, about the lighting, crew members she'd never met, about how connection can come from the quietest places. She ended her journal entry with a line. She wasn't sure where it came from. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is show the world your crack sand. Let the light in. She closed the book gently, and for the first time in a long time, she looked in the mirror and didn't feel the need to pretend. She saw herself, and that was enough. The crack in Keanu's armor, it was raining the next morning, soft, steady rain. The kind that made everything feel slower and quieter. Anna arrived on set with her hood pulled over her head, but her steps were steady, her eyes brighter than before. She had changed, not in a way you could photograph. Not in the way stylists and magazines cared about, but in a way that lived deep inside her. A shift, a choice. She was no longer hiding. And that small decision had changed how she carried herself. As she stepped into the makeup trailer, she found a small folded note on her chair. It was written on a piece of scrap paper, the kind usually thrown away. "Your scene yesterday made me call my sister. I hadn't spoken to her in 2 years, thank you." Anna blinked hard. That was the third note she had received in 2 days. She hadn't tried to make a statement. She hadn't given a speech. She had simply shown her truth, and somehow that had become a bridge for others. Later that day, she noticed something different about Keanu. I wasn't smiling like usual. He moved slower, quieter, more distant. She watched him as they rehearsed lines, as he talked with the crew, even as he sat alone. In a corner, between takes, something was off. That evening, when the rest of the cast had gone, Anna lingered behind. She waited until he had finished packing his things, then gently approached him. "You okay?" she asked. Keanu paused, then gave a practiced smile. Just tired. But she saw through it. "You don't have to do that," she said quietly. He looked at her. "You don't have to say I'm fine just to protect me," she added. "Not after everything you helped me through." Keanu sat down on a nearby bench, resting his elbows on his knees. He didn't speak for a while. Then, in a voice barely louder than the rain outside, he said, "Today's the anniversary." Anna sat beside him. "Anniversary." He nodded. "My sister. She passed away 6 years ago today." Heart softened. Keanu continued, his voice slow and distant. "She was the one who always believed in me, even when I didn't. And now, every year on this day, I wonder if I've lived a life she'd be proud of." Anna didn't speak. She just listened. "I try to stay strong," he said. "I try to help others, to be kind, to do good work. But some days," he paused, swallowing hard. "Some days the silence gets too loud." Anna gently placed her hand over his. "Thank you for telling me," she whispered. "I know that wasn't easy." He looked down at their hands. "Strange. I spend so much time being there for others. Forget what it feels like when someone's there for me." Anna smiled softly. "Then maybe it's my turn." They sat in silence for a long time, the kind of silence that doesn't need to be filled. It was a silence of comfort, of trust. After a while, Keanu pulled a small, folded photo from his jacket pocket. It was old, slightly worn. A picture of him and his sister, both laughing, both younger, free of the weight they would one day carry. "Her name was Kim," he said. Anna studied the picture and nodded. "She has your smile." Keanu chuckled, his eyes misty. "Always said I smiled like I knew a secret." "Maybe you do," Anna whispered. He looked at her then, really looked. And something shifted between them, something unspoken, but deeply felt. Not romance. Not yet. But the beginning of something sacred. Connection, respect, understanding. "Thank you for staying," he said. "Always," she replied. That night, as she lay in bed, Anna thought about how quiet strength could be. How sometimes the strongest people were the ones who didn't show it loudly. They were the ones who kept showing up, who kept loving, even after loss, who stood beside others without needing to speak. Anna closed her eyes and whispered a promise. To herself, if he ever needs me the way I needed him, I will be there. Outside, the rain continued to fall. But inside, something beautiful was beginning to grow. What stays after the spotlight? Fadisa week passed quietly. The storm of rumors had faded. The tabloids had moved on. The crew settled into a steady rhythm. But something had changed. Something lasting Anna walked through, set now with a different kind of presence. Not louder, not bolder, just more grounded. People no longer saw just the star in her. They saw the soul behind her smile. And somehow, that made everything feel more real. Keanu, too, had shifted. He still moved gently, still kept his words few. But there was a softness around him now, like a man who had finally shared the story he'd been carrying for too long. One evening, just before their final scene together, the director called for a short break. The sun was setting, casting gold over everything. Anna and Keanu sat together on a wooden bench near the edge of the set, watching the light disappear behind the hills. When this film wraps, Anna said, everything changes again. Keanu nodded slowly. It always does. But I don't want to lose this, she added. What we've found. What we've shared. He turned to her. Then don't. Anna smiled, but her eyes held something deeper. Do you ever think? Maybe some people come into your life just when you're ready to see them differently? Keanu looked at her thoughtfully. Maybe the right people were always there, but it takes the right moment for hearts to meet. She nodded slowly. Sometimes that moment begins with one sentence. I can't do this anymore, he said, repeating her words from that day. I never forgot how you said that. I meant it, she whispered. I know, he said. But look at where you are now. Anna looked down at her hands. Strana, it's not because the pain is gone, but because I'm not hiding anymore. Keanu smiled. That's strength. It's rare and beautiful. Then he paused. Do you remember what you told me the night I opened up about my sister? Ina thought for a second. I said, maybe it's my turn to be there for you. You were, he said. You are? More than you know. A breeze passed between them, soft and full. Of meaning, the assistant director called out, ready on set? They stood together, walking toward the lights, side by side. The scene was short, just a farewell. Their characters parting ways after a long journey. But as they stood before the camera, looking into each other's eyes, the silence said more than any line could. When the director called, cut, no one moved for a moment. Then applause. Not forced. Not for show. Just real appreciation for a performance that felt lived. It's not acted. As the crew wrapped up and people began to scatter, Anna and Keanu lingered near the lot's edge. You think this film will be remembered? She asked. Maybe. He said, but I think what matters more is what it gave us. Now what's that? He looked at her, a place to stop pretending. She smiled, tears rising in her eyes, but not from sadness, from peace, from gratitude. They hugged, like actors, not like friends. Something more. A quiet promise, a connection born from truth. In the days that followed, the world moved fast again. Interviews, photo shoots, red carpets, but something was different. Anna no longer tried to be perfect, and Keanu no longer carried his quiet pain. Alone, they stayed in touch. Real messages, late-night calls. Moments shared not for cameras, but for healing. And every now and then, one of them would send a letter. Just a short one, with words like, still here, thinking of you. Thank you for that day. And years later, when people would ask, Anna, what changed her life? Not what role, not what award, she would say softly. It wasn't a moment on screen. It was a moment off camera. When I said, I can't do this anymore. Someone didn't walk away. 'Cause sometimes, one quiet person, one gentle response, one honest moment that becomes a legend. And in their story, it did.